There was a man who stood in the same spot behind Marlowe's diner every night, facing the wall like he was listening to it. I used to take the same shortcut home every night. Down by Marlowe's diner, through the alley behind it, and past the parking lot with the busted streetlight. I liked the routine. It made the loneliness of working late shifts feel smaller. Familiar. Predictable. Until one night it wasn't. It was just after 2 a.m., early fall, air crisp enough to see my breath. I just clocked out of the late-night bookstore on 9th and had my usual thermos of coffee in hand. The street was dead quiet. No cars, no people, just the soft hum of the diner's neon sign flickering in the distance. When I reached the alley, I paused like always to light a cigarette. That's when I first noticed the silence had changed. Not broken, just shifted. Like the air had weight to it. Halfway down the alley, I spotted a figure standing near the dumpster. He was tall, wearing a coat too big for his frame. Face shadowed under a hood. Not moving. Not smoking. Just standing. Facing the wall, like he was thinking, or maybe listening. I told myself he was just a drunk. Someone waiting on food scraps or trying to stay warm. But something in me tensed anyway. I started walking again, slow and casual, but I kept to the far side of the alley, closer to the wall of the diner. As I passed, I gave him a quick glance. He hadn't moved an inch. And then, he turned his head, just slightly, tracking me with his eyes. I pretended not to notice, but I felt his stare like static electricity crawling up my spine. 15 more feet and I'd be back on the main road. I heard footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. I didn't turn around. I walked faster. I told myself not to run. Just act normal. Maybe he's just heading the same way. But the second I rounded the corner into the lot, I took off. I ran full sprint down the sidewalk, coffee sloshing onto my jacket, heart pounding like a war drum. I didn't stop until I reached the bodega on 5th and Main, where the night clerk always left the lights on, even when they were closed. I ducked into the shadows next to the newspaper rack, turned around, and waited. No one followed. I felt stupid. Paranoid. Maybe the guy was harmless. Maybe he didn't even notice me. Still, I took the long way home that night. The well-lit streets. The longer blocks. The ones with traffic cameras and late-night joggers. But the next night? He was there again. Same coat. Same posture. Different position, closer to the entrance of the alley this time. I didn't go through. I turned around and walked 2 extra blocks to avoid it. My gut was screaming by then. And not from caffeine or hunger. It was that deep, primitive kind of fear, the kind that makes your fingers cold and your teeth ache. Over the next few days, I tried switching up my routine. Left work earlier, took different paths, even caught rides from a coworker twice. But on the nights I walked alone, he was always there. Never speaking. Never reaching out. Just watching. Last night, I finally worked up the nerve to call the cops. I didn't have much to give them, just a vague description and a general location. They promised to send someone by. I didn't believe them. So tonight, I brought something with me. A pocket knife. Just in case. And when I turned the corner into the alley, I saw something that made my stomach twist into knots. The man was gone. But there, taped to the brick wall under the flickering diner light, was a photo. A printed photo. Of me. Walking through that alley. Looking straight into the camera. It was taken just 3 nights ago. I didn't move for what felt like a full minute. Just stared at the photo taped to the brick, the corners fluttering slightly in the breeze. The quality wasn't great, but it was good enough to make out the details. My coat, my thermos, the exhausted slump in my shoulders as I walked past the dumpster 3 nights ago. And the worst part? I was looking directly into the lens. I don't remember seeing a camera. I don't remember looking at anyone. But there it was, evidence that someone had been watching. Following. Waiting. The pocket knife in my coat felt like a toy. Useless. I tore the photo off the wall and shoved it in my pocket, hands trembling. The alley was empty, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still being watched. I turned in a slow circle, scanning the rooftops, the dumpsters, even the greasy diner kitchen window where a tired-looking line cook stood, oblivious. He wasn't watching me. Whoever had taken that photo, they were better at hiding. I power-walked the rest of the way home, adrenaline buzzing behind my eyes. Every sound made me flinch: car doors slamming, a dog barking, the scratch of wind-blown trash on pavement. When I got home, I locked the door. Then I locked it again. Then I dragged a chair under the knob like I'd seen in movies. Sleep didn't come easy. When it finally did, I dreamed of camera shutters and empty faces. The next morning, I went straight to the police station. I told the officer everything: my name, the alley, the photo, the man who kept standing there night after night. I handed over the picture. He looked at it, squinted, then sighed. "Do you know this person?" he asked. "No. That's me. I'm the one in the picture." Another pause. Another sigh. He said he'd file a report, but without a threat, there wasn't much they could do. I left feeling stupid. Overdramatic. Like maybe I'd made it all into something it wasn't. Still, that night, I didn't take the shortcut. Didn't even walk. I got a lift, watched the windows the whole ride, scanned the sidewalks for that oversized coat and blank stare. Nothing. I started to breathe again. Maybe it really was over. Until I got home and found the second photo. It was wedged into the crack of my front door, folded neatly like a love letter. I unfolded it with shaking fingers. This time, it wasn't the alley. It was a photo of me, sleeping. Blankets up to my chest, mouth slightly open, the room dark except for the faint glow of my bedside lamp. I don't even know how long I stood there. Just holding it. Staring. Trying to convince myself it was fake. Some kind of cruel joke. Something explainable. But I couldn't. Because the angle, it was taken from inside my apartment. From the doorway to my bedroom. He'd been inside. I didn't call the police this time. I called a locksmith. He came within an hour and changed every lock on every door. I asked him to install a second deadbolt. A security bar. A sliding chain. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat in my living room with every light on, holding the knife like it could actually protect me. Morning came. Nothing happened. No new photos. No knocks. No sign. But the next night? I woke up at 3:12 a.m. to the sound of something sliding across my living room floor. Not footsteps. Not voices. Just a soft, steady drag, like fabric being pulled. Or a body. I stayed in bed, frozen, barely breathing. Then 3 knocks. Not at the front door. At my bedroom closet. I haven't opened it yet. And if you're reading this, I need you to understand one thing. If someone ever offers you a shortcut, take the long way. Every time. Because once they know your route, once they learn your rhythm, they stop being strangers. And they become shadows. The bus stop was empty, except for one man sitting perfectly still, eyes fixed on the woods like he was waiting for something to crawl out. I was supposed to be gone before dark. That's what the woman at the corner store told me when I asked about the schedule. She said the buses stopped running after 7:30, and even if they didn't, no one sane would still be waiting at that stop after sundown. But I missed the 7:10 by 6 minutes. Greywater isn't really a town. It's more like a cluster of buildings that got left behind when the county redrew its map. One gas station. One store. A handful of houses, and a bus stop that looked like it hadn't been maintained since the 90s. Cracked concrete, rusted sign, bench made of warped wood and peeling paint. I was there because I'd driven my cousin's car out for a quick trip, drop off some supplies, check in on the property he'd inherited, take some photos for the lawyer. Easy. But the car wouldn't start again. Dead battery. No signal. The closest mechanic was 15 miles away. So I walked. Found the bus stop. Figured I'd just catch the next ride out and deal with the rest in the morning. When I first got there, it was just me. Sunset was bleeding out behind the hills, and the air had that damp, metallic smell that comes before a cold snap. I sat on the edge of the bench and waited. About 10 minutes later, the man showed up. Didn't walk from anywhere I could see. He just sort of arrived. From the Trillion, maybe? His clothes were plain, a faded gray hoodie, dark jeans, heavy boots that looked too clean for the dirt road. He sat on the far end of the bench and didn't say a word. No greeting. No nod. Just stared across the road at the woods like he was tracking something I couldn't see. At first, I tried not to let it bother me. It's a bus stop, people wait. But after a while, I couldn't help glancing his way. He hadn't moved at all. Not even a shift in posture. No phone. No fidgeting. I cleared my throat and asked, "Do you know when the next one comes?" Nothing. Not even a blink. I tried again. Still nothing. Then I noticed something else. He wasn't breathing. I know how that sounds. Maybe it was just too shallow to notice. Maybe the cold made the air too still. But I swear to you, he looked frozen. Like a mannequin. Like a photo. I stood up. Walked a few paces down the road. Checked my phone again, still no service. When I looked back at the bench, he was gone. I hadn't heard him leave. No footsteps. No movement. Just gone. That's when the sign started to flicker. The old metal sign above the stop, Route 17 Express, buzzed once, like it had juice, then flickered with a light I hadn't noticed before. I stepped back toward it, confused. It glowed once more. Then stopped. That's when I heard the breathing. Not mine. From the bench. I turned around, and the man was sitting there again. Same position. Same clothes. This time, his head was tilted slightly toward me. And he was smiling. I didn't smile back. I didn't move. There was something wrong with his face. Not like an injury, but like the expression didn't belong to the muscles it was sitting on. Like someone had told him how to smile, and he was trying it for the very first time. I forced out a shaky laugh and said, "Guess you don't talk much, huh?" His eyes stayed on mine. Cold. Flat. No amusement. No anything. Then he said slowly, like he had to remember how to speak, "Bus comes after dark." I swallowed. "Yeah. That's what they said. You waiting too?" He didn't answer that. Just looked back at the woods again. The trees were black silhouettes now. The kind of dark that eats headlights. I suddenly realized there were no sounds anymore. No birds. No bugs. Not even wind. Just us. Just breathing. Except he'd stopped again. No breath. No blink. That smile still hanging crooked on his face. I sat back down, slowly, keeping a few feet between us. I checked my phone. Still dead. A few more minutes passed. I started to hear something in the distance. Low. Rumbling. Like an engine. Relief surged through me. I stood up, looking down the road. Headlights appeared, dim, flickering, like they were struggling to stay on. A long, squat bus rolled slowly around the bend. It was painted dark green, but most of it was streaked with dirt and rust. The windshield was cracked down the center. The front sign didn't light up, but the side of the bus had faded letters that said, Greywater Co. Transport. It creaked to a stop in front of us. The doors hissed open. I turned to the man, but he was already standing. Already stepping on. I waited for the driver to say something, but no one was there. Just an empty seat where the driver should have been. The man walked halfway down the aisle and sat. Perfectly still again. Facing forward. I hesitated. Every instinct I had told me not to get on that bus. But my legs moved anyway. I stepped up into the aisle. Glanced once more at the driver's seat. Empty. I turned back to the man. "Is this going to?" His head snapped toward me like it had been yanked on a string. "It takes you where you went missing." I froze. "What?" He didn't answer. The door hissed shut behind me. The bus lurched forward. Outside the windows, the road was gone. Not just dark, gone. Replaced with shifting fog, twisted trees, and flashes of light that didn't have a source. Like someone was opening a door in another dimension and slamming it shut again. Over and over. I tried to sit. The seat was ice cold. All around me, I could feel pressure. Like the bus was sinking instead of driving. That's when I realized something else. There were others on the bus now. Every seat behind me was full. Faces turned forward. Silent. Still. And I recognized one. It was the woman from the store, the one who told me to leave before dark. But her face was wrong. Her eyes were hollowed out, skin drawn tight like old leather. And she didn't blink. Not once. I shot up from my seat and ran to the front. The door didn't open. I banged on the glass. "Let me off!" Behind me, the man from the bench finally moved again. He stood, walked toward me, and whispered, "It always picks one." Then he grabbed my arm. Hard. But before he could pull, the bus shuddered to a stop. The door hissed open. And I jumped. Rolled down a slope, hit the ground hard, scraped my palms open on gravel. When I looked back, the bus was already gone. No engine. No lights. No sound. Just an empty road, cold wind, and the smell of something burnt. I don't know how I got back to town. I walked for hours. Eventually found the main road again. A gas station clerk let me use their phone. The police came. Gave me a ride. Asked questions I couldn't answer. I told them I missed the bus. That was 3 weeks ago. But last night, taped to the outside of my apartment door, was a flyer. Just one sheet of paper. Missing person, David Marlowe, last seen at Greywater bus stop, October 7th. And underneath it, someone had written in ink, "We told you not to wait after dark." The door in the library basement wasn't on the map, but I found it anyway, tucked behind a forgotten shelf, sealed with 3 padlocks. I was never supposed to be down there. The archives room in the old Fairburn Public Library is technically off-limits to patrons, and definitely off-limits after hours. But I work the evening shift part-time, and when you've got keys and curiosity and no supervision, boundaries blur fast. It started with the renovations. The main floor had been closed off for a few weeks while contractors updated the HVAC system. In the meantime, we kept a skeleton staff working out of the basement, just the essentials, a desk, the computer system, and a few rolling carts of requested books. The basement had always creeped me out. The lights took a second too long to warm up, and the air was always colder than it should have been. Not like underground cold. More like, don't ask why, cold. But I needed the money, and I figured the weird vibes were just in my head. Then one night, I knocked a heavy history volume off the shelf while restocking returns. It hit the floor with a boom loud enough to echo, and as I bent down to grab it, I noticed something behind the cart. A wall that didn't match the others. Most of the basement was drywall and old wooden shelves, but this? It was stone. Jagged gray, and clearly older than the rest of the building. Set into it was a thick steel door with chipped blue paint and 3 rusted padlocks. No signage. No label. Just that door, tucked out of view like it was never meant to be found. I asked my manager about it the next day. He squinted like he was trying to remember something, then shook his head. "There's no door down there. Not anymore." That stuck with me. Not anymore? I let it go for a few days, but the more I thought about it, the more it gnawed at me. Why would a public library have a sealed stone room in the basement? Why would no one talk about it? On Friday night I stayed late. I told myself I was just going to look. Just going to get close. I brought bolt cutters. The first lock snapped easy, old and brittle. The second was tougher. Took effort. The third, it felt like it didn't want to break. It fought me. But I got it. I took a breath. Reached for the handle. It was cold. Freezing, even through my sleeve. When I pulled it open, the hinges groaned like something was waking up. Behind the door was a narrow stairwell, sloping downward into pitch black. I hesitated, because of course I did, but then I clicked on my flashlight and stepped inside. The temperature dropped instantly. My breath fogged. The stairs creaked. The air smelled like dust and mildew, but underneath it, something else. Like copper. Like blood. The stairwell ended in a small stone room. Maybe 15 by 15 feet. Empty, except for a single chair in the center and a thick, yellowed envelope sitting on the seat. I approached slowly. Flashlight beam shaking slightly in my hand. The envelope had one word written on the front in blocky, all capital handwriting. Don't. My heart started pounding. I should have left. Instead, I opened it. Inside were photographs. Old ones? Black and white, sepia-tinged, edges curled from age. Each one showed a person standing in that same chair, in that same room, staring blankly into the camera. Some of them were smiling. Most weren't. And at the bottom of the stack was a final photo. It was dated 4 days ago. And it was a photo of me. Standing in the chair. Staring into the camera. I dropped the photo. No, threw it like it burned. My own face, in that room, in that chair, printed and dated 4 days ago. I'd never stood in that chair before. Never even seen it until tonight. So how the hell had someone already taken a picture of me doing exactly that? I turned and aimed my flashlight at the walls, trying to spot a hidden camera. Nothing. Just uneven stone and the wet glint of old mortar. I backed toward the stairs, heart slamming in my chest. I hadn't heard the door close behind me, but when I reached the top, it was shut. I tried the handle. Locked. No. No way. I'd broken the locks. I'd left it open. I yanked harder. Still locked. I was trapped. The air down there got heavier by the second. Each breath felt like I was inhaling through soaked cloth. My flashlight started to flicker. I shook it, cursed it. Still dimming. Then footsteps. Down the stairs. Not running. Not stomping. Just slow. Careful. Measured. I scrambled back into the room and scanned for a second exit. Nothing. Just the chair and the envelope now fluttering on the floor, some of the photos scattered. I ducked into the farthest corner and killed the flashlight. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then, I heard a sound I'll never forget. A whisper. Not near my ear, but inside my ear. Like it bypassed air completely. A voice that sounded like mine, but wrong. You've already been here. I wanted to scream. Wanted to claw my way through the wall if I had to. But my limbs weren't working. My body was still, like it had forgotten how to run. The door creaked open again. Footsteps entered the room. I couldn't see them. But I could feel them. Each step sent a vibration through the floor, up my spine, into my teeth. Then I heard the camera. Click. A flash of light, brief but blinding, lit up the whole room. When my vision cleared, the chair was empty. And the door was open again. I ran. Up the stairs, through the threshold, into the basement. I didn't stop until I was outside the building, lungs screaming in the cold air. I called my manager the next morning and told him I was done. No 2 weeks. No explanation. I didn't care. I just needed out. That was 6 months ago. I moved 3 towns away. Got a different job. Haven't stepped foot in another library since. But here's the thing. Last week, a padded envelope showed up at my apartment. No return address. Just my name on the front in the same blocky handwriting as before. Inside? A photo. Me. Again. In a chair I'd never seen before. Different room. Different lighting. But the look on my face? That was the same. Blank. Dead-eyed. Staring straight into the camera. Whatever was in that locked room. I don't think I left it behind. I think it followed me. Or maybe it was never a room at all. Maybe it was a mirror, one that shows you the version of yourself you're about to become. So if you ever find a door that's not supposed to be there, especially one with no label, no history, and too many locks. Don't open it. And for the love of God, don't sit in the chair. The first time I heard footsteps above my apartment, I didn't think twice, until the landlord reminded me the unit upstairs was still vacant. I moved into the building on 6th Street because it was cheap, close to work, and honestly, I didn't have many options. It was the kind of place you sign for in a rush, hoping you can make it feel like home later. Peeling paint. Narrow halls. Neighbors who keep their heads down and their doors locked. But I've lived worse places. Unit 2B was mine. Right above me was 3B, identical layout, the same crooked floors and thin walls. On my first day, I asked the landlord Curtis, who lived up there, thinking I'd drop by and say hey. He just shook his head. 3B? No one. Empty since February. I nodded. Didn't think much of it. That changed 2 weeks later. It started small. A light thud above my bedroom, like someone dropped something. Then silence. The next night it happened again. Then again. Always late. Always when the rest of the building felt dead. One night I heard footsteps. Pacing. Slow and deliberate. Back and forth above my ceiling. I texted Curtis. Hey, thought you said 3B was empty? He replied almost instantly. It is. I didn't sleep much that night. A few days later I got bold. After hearing the footsteps again around 1:30 a.m., I grabbed my keys, stepped out into the hall, and went upstairs. The door to 3B was closed. No lights beneath the frame. I knocked once, then pressed my ear to the door. Nothing. I stood there a while, more unnerved by the silence than the noise. Then I went back downstairs. The next morning, I ran into the tenant from 2C in the stairwell, an older woman with sharp eyes and a soft voice. I asked if she'd ever heard anything from the unit above. She went pale. You hear them too? I paused. Them? She nodded slowly. Every place I've lived, it's always started with footsteps. Then they get curious. Before I could ask what she meant, she walked away. That night, the footsteps changed. They weren't just pacing anymore. They were following me. If I moved to the kitchen, I'd hear them overhead matching my steps. Bathroom? Same thing. They always stayed one floor above, never faster, never slower. That's when I stopped feeling like I was alone in the apartment. I'd be brushing my teeth and feel it, that static weight behind me. I'd turn around fast, find nothing, but still feel that presence linger. Then came the knocking. Not on my front door. From inside the walls. Soft at first. Like someone lightly tapping, searching. Then harder. More urgent. Like they were trying to get out. Or in. That's when I remembered what the woman upstairs said, they get curious. A few nights ago, I finally broke. I was lying in bed when I heard it, something dragging across the floor above me. Then footsteps. Then silence. Then a low voice. Just one word. Hello? I shot up, heart in my throat. It wasn't muffled like someone speaking from upstairs. It sounded like it was coming through the vent. I scrambled out of bed and slammed the bedroom door. I called Curtis again, voice shaking, told him someone was in 3B. He sighed. Told me he'd come check it in the morning. So I did the only thing I could think of. I left. Drove to my sister's and crashed on her couch, feeling like a coward but unable to stay there another second. This morning I got a call. It was Curtis. He sounded shaken. I went into 3B. He said. Place is clean. Untouched. A pause. But I found something on the wall. Thought you should know. Another pause. Your name. It's written in the dust. Over and over. I went back. I didn't want to. My sister told me to crash with her another night. My gut told me to break the lease and never look back. But I had to see it for myself. The hallway outside 3B was quiet when I arrived. Still. Like even sound didn't want to stick around. I stood there a full minute before Curtis showed up, jangling his keys like it was any normal day. He didn't look me in the eye. "You sure about this?" he asked, already knowing the answer. I nodded. He unlocked the door. The unit smelled like old wood and dry rot. The air was thick with dust. Every step stirred something that hadn't been touched in months. It was empty. No furniture. No lights. Just bare floors, gray walls, and that soft crunch of grit under your shoes. Curtis pointed toward the far wall in the bedroom. There it was. My name, written over and over in the dust. Same block letters, same length, spaced unevenly like a kid had done it. The last one was smeared, like whoever wrote it had stopped mid-stroke. I took a photo. Then I left. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't unpack. I didn't even sit down. I watched the ceiling. At 1:38 a.m., the footsteps returned. But this time, they didn't stay upstairs. They moved. Down. I heard them coming through the stairwell. Then across the hall. Then, tap, 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 on my front door. I stared at it, breath caught somewhere between lungs and throat. The peephole was black. No shape. No shadow. Just void. I didn't open it. But I couldn't look away. Then I heard it. A whisper. My name. Not from the hallway. From behind me. I spun around and saw nothing. But I felt the cold. Like air moving in the wrong direction. Like the room had exhaled. The knock came again. Only this time, it wasn't on the door. It came from inside the closet. 3 slow knocks. Wood on wood. I backed away, hand fumbling for the knife I kept on the counter. I didn't even know what I planned to do with it. But holding it made me feel like I might still be part of the real world. The closet knob began to turn. Click. 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 Then it stopped. And all at once, silence. I don't know how long I stood there. I must have fallen asleep on the couch eventually, because the next thing I remember, it was daylight and everything was normal. I checked the closet. Empty. Checked the peephole. Clear. I almost convinced myself it was all in my head. Until I went into the bathroom. And saw the mirror. Someone had written a message in the condensation. "You're next." That was 3 nights ago. I haven't heard the footsteps since. Haven't seen anything. But I know better now. I think they move from unit to unit. Floor to floor. Watching. Waiting. Learning you. And once they know your name, they don't stop. I'm leaving next week. I found a new place across town. Bright. Modern. Lots of windows. But sometimes, when I'm lying in bed, I still think I hear them. Not above me. Inside the walls. And last night? When I looked in the mirror after my shower, there was another name written next to mine. One I didn't recognize. But someone will. Soon. Maybe even you. We found the old grain silo by accident, but the blood on the ladder rungs wasn't weathered, and the hatch at the top was open. It was supposed to be a weekend away. Me, my girlfriend Laura, and our 2 friends, Derek and Maya. We rented a cabin just outside Twin Hollow, this nowhere little town surrounded by fields and broken fences. The kind of place where the diner still uses paper menus and the locals look at you like your license plates are a personal insult. It was Maya's idea. She found the cabin online, cheap, rustic, and just close enough to civilization to feel safe. None of us bothered to ask why it was so cheap. First night was fine. Bonfire, cheap beer, too many marshmallows. The second day, we decided to explore. A dirt path behind the cabin led down through some trees and opened up into a wide stretch of overgrown farmland. There were remnants of fencing, half-buried machinery, and in the distance, standing tall and skeletal, was the silo. It didn't look abandoned. Not exactly. There was no rust on the ladder. No vines. No graffiti. And as we got closer, we saw it, dark stains on the lower rungs. Dried brown red spattered like something had been dragged. A raccoon maybe? Or worse. Derek wanted to climb it immediately. Said it'd make a great photo for his hiking blog. Laura and Maya stayed back, uneasy. I wasn't sure how I felt. But I followed him anyway. The climb was harder than it looked. The wind-up top had a bite to it, and the hatch door was already open, banging gently in the breeze. We peered inside. And saw nothing. No grain. No machinery. Just darkness, broken only by thin shafts of light from cracks in the metal. The inside was a hollow cylinder stretching down into black. And then we heard it. A whisper. It came from inside the silo. No direction. No source. Just a word. Stop. Derek laughed, nervously. Probably wind. Or bats. But I didn't believe that. Because wind doesn't whisper your name the second time. That night, none of us slept well. Laura kept asking me if I'd noticed anything off about Derek. Said he was acting strange. Quiet. Jumpy. I brushed it off. But in the morning, I found something outside. Boot prints. Fresh ones. Circling the cabin. And leading back toward the silo. Only Derek had boots. We didn't see him until noon. He came walking up the trail from the silo direction. Pale. Empty-eyed. Like he'd walked through a dream and couldn't get out of it. When we asked where he'd been, he just muttered. Wanted to check something. We decided, unspoken but mutual, to leave a day early. But by the time we packed the car, Derek was gone again. His bag was still inside. So was his phone. We searched. Screamed his name. Eventually, I went back to the silo alone. Climbed to the top. The hatch was open again. I leaned in. Shouted his name. And this time, the whisper wasn't a word. It was a sound. Something moving down there. Something wet. Then, barely audible, a voice that wasn't Derek's. Send another. I ran. Didn't look back. Didn't call for Derek again. Whatever was in that silo, it heard me. When I got back to the cabin, Laura and Maya were outside, yelling into the woods. I told them we were leaving. Now. No questions. They saw the look on my face and didn't argue. We loaded the car, slammed the doors, and peeled out so fast we fishtailed on the gravel. Derek didn't come back. We called the police from the highway. They said they'd send someone to check. They took our statements over the phone and told us to wait for follow-up. That was 3 days ago. No one ever followed up. No missing person reports were filed. We even tried calling the sheriff's office in Twin Hollow ourselves, but every time we mentioned the silo, the person on the other end just went quiet. Then hung up. Yesterday, Laura showed me something. It was a screen recording from her phone, from a hiking app she used. It had GPS tracking. She hadn't realized it was running during the trip. There was a red line showing our path from the cabin to the silo, and then another path. A straight line from the silo that split off and looped behind the cabin. We hadn't gone that way. She didn't record that. But her phone had. There were footsteps following us. From the silo. Always 20 feet behind. That night, I dreamed of the hatch. It wasn't just a lid. It was a mouth. Rusted and wide and hungry. Inside, Derek wasn't dead. He was waiting. I could see him, arms outstretched, skin gone paper pale, lips cracked open. He whispered, "You brought me." When I woke up, my phone buzzed. No number. No ID. Just a text. Send another. I showed it to Laura. She didn't ask questions. We just stared at each other, both thinking the same thing. This wasn't a dream anymore. Something had been fed. And it wanted more. This morning, we got a package. No return label. No stamps. Inside was a single photograph. Derek. Standing beside the silo. But not the Derek we knew. His eyes were black. His mouth too wide. And he was smiling. Behind him, just barely visible in the open hatch, was something else. Something with arms. Too many of them. We're not the first ones. We won't be the last. Twin Hollow has no history online. No town records. No obituary for Derek. Because this place feeds. And it forgets. I don't know what's inside that silo. I don't know what it wants. But I know this. It doesn't hunt. It waits. It whispers. And if you ever find a trail that leads to an open hatch, don't send another. Because one day, someone might send you.